I think, and I'm hesitant to bring this up because I don't want to misinterpret Fulton Sheen, but I remember him saying something about the illogic of atheism, because in order to be an atheist, you have to have something to atheate. It was something like that. And I think he may have said something like being against smoking, like presumes that smoking exists, and to be against God. Now, I might be taking him out of context, but if I've understood him correctly, like that just sounds like a terrible argument against atheism. Like, you could also just think God doesn't exist. You don't have to, And I think I've even heard, who was that guy? He was the actor from Home Improvement, Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Oh yeah, Tim Allen.
Yeah, he's like a Christian, and I remember seeing a YouTube clip of him saying, my daughter was an atheist, and I don't believe in God, and he's had some stupid response, like, if you don't believe in God, like, it was so bad, like, it was along those lines, well, how do you know, why are you against him if he doesn't exist? That proves that he does exist, or something like that. I'm just like, this is awful. And I've done the same thing as well, like, you just jump onto any bad argument. I was doing this actually recently, like in an argument with my friend Cameron Bertuzzi. We were looking at John chapter 6, and I was giving reasons why it shows that, that Jesus Christ meant what he said. And I had heard one argument in the past that said, well, in verse 63, where he says, the words I've spoken to you are spirit and life, right? And that's sometimes what Protestants will cite to show that Christ was speaking symbolically. Now, there's really, really compelling reasons to think that's not at all the case. But one of those reasons isn't a good one. And I used it in an argument with him. And as I used it, I'm like, I'm not even convinced by this. Why am I using it? And it was the idea that the Bread of Life discourse ended a few verses prior to this. And so somehow that made it distinct from what he was saying in the Bread of Life discourse. But the point is, even if that made little sense, the point is I was offering an argument that I had heard before, and as I was arguing it, thought, yeah, this isn't really good. So why am I using it, And like, it's okay just to be like, this isn't good, or at least I don't find it compelling, and so I shouldn't be using it.
Yeah. I think that like here a helpful point is that apologetically, it's not sufficient to have memorized the passages in the scriptures that convey your point, right? So, like the general point right now, number 5 is don't use bad arguments to defend your position, because then it can expose the faith to ridicule. So I think that proof texting can sometimes be a bad argument, because if it is not underwritten by real understanding, it can make other people to think that we are just Bible-toting fundamentalists, right? So it's good to know the text that you can marshal in defense of your position. Say you're arguing for purgatory, it's good to know what it says in 2 Maccabees or something like that. But those need to be incorporated within a philosophy and a theology of apologetics. So that's not to say that you need to be wicked smart. It's not to say that you need to have studied these things for many years, but you need to have rehearsed the arguments, thought through them, prayed through them, and they need to be kind of articulated, right? So it's not sufficient to say like this passage says this, and this passage says this, and this passage says this, because they're not self-interpreting.
That's right.
You need to do the work of interpretation, and in doing the work of interpretation, you need to appeal to your interlocutor in a way that he or she will recognize, and so as to ensure that it resonates with them. So I'd say, yeah, proof texting maybe is another example of this type of thing.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.